This is a good time since we got a lot of folks. Just remember there's good snacks and everything available to you. This one happens to be some of my students here. Montell Norman is the one who took Game Design 2 with me this last semester, in which we get to make 3D and virtual reality games, which is as much fun as it sounds like. So please take it away, Montell.
Hello everyone. Again, thank you, Dr. Thornton, for introducing us again. My name is Montell Norman, and this is my brother, Martell. He also helped me out on this project. And Megan, she couldn't make it today. Something came up last minute, so she's here with us in spirit. And so today, I'm going to present y'all the VR game that we developed together called SCP-5999, a VR horror game. And so, to start off, some introduction. Again, like Dr. Thornton said, we took Game Design 2, which we take the class to develop 3D games or 3D short films, and we use that in the Unity engine. And Unity engine is a platform where creators could use that platform to create things that it could imagine, that could stand from mobile games or apps, video games, virtual reality, and also short films. And we utilize the Valve Index out of all the equipment that Dr. Thornton has. He has the MetaQuest and the HTC 5, but we prefer the Valve Index because it's much more nicer compared to other headsets, no offense, Thornton. And it allows us to use the room setup so we could utilize a bigger play space. Now, another disclaimer is that we did have a most recent build that I did work on throughout the winter break, but the external hard drive that I had stored on experienced some physical damage to it. Somehow I didn't notice it, so that game is in the ether now. So that sucks, but it is what it is.
So most of y'all, young people, already know what probably virtual reality is, but for the older folks who don't know, what virtual reality is, or VR, basically virtual reality is a computer-generated simulation that allows users to explore any 3D realm that the creator wants to explore in their world. So that comes to sci-fi, fantasy, or to maybe if you're a history nerd, etc. Wherever the creator wants you to experience in that virtual reality, you can do whatever you want. So for video games, us game developers in Game Design 2 and other businesses, they create worlds for us to escape reality, to relax, and be entertained wherever like I said, game developer wants to experience in that world. And it's different from AR, augmented reality, just make sure.
So one of the things that we like to call game design and in game development is called pre-development. That's where we get tossed around brainstorming and tossed around ideas. And one of the things that I did when we started out was that I bought myself a journal to write down some ideas. And initially, before we made a VR game, it was initially a first-person shooter game with a roguelike setting where the levels are procedurally generated, as well as the difficulty increased. But one of my classmates suggested look into virtual reality development. And at the time, through the last semester, we had a 3-day weekend. So I took the time throughout the weekend to jot some ideas down. I expected nothing much from it. I wrote down 4 pages worth of ideas. So yeah, I was very interested from that point on. And so one of the things that we start off with the pre-development is looking into the art and the aesthetic of the world. And that's where Megan came in, and she was wonderful throughout the whole process. And at first, we just wanted to do like a PlayStation 1 art style, very retro, so it could get more of a creepy setting. But that was ultimately scrapped because how it was not working with the VR. So Megan went to the Unity Asset Store, which is integrated within the Unity engine, so we could use other creators' assets that they created for other users to use for their projects. And so we would collaborate and made this little room for our game to make it seem more immersive and realistic for the narrative for our game, and help us find more ways to scare the player. And also we put little Easter eggs for people who know the story behind our game. And so one of the things that I took on and that I told Megan and Martell that not to worry about is the building out the VR systems, and that's the thing I was mostly stressing about. I did not want to stress on that because I know that was going to be a complicated process. So initially, when I started out, I was scared that it was going to involve a lot of programming. Come to find out, the Unity engine allows us to literally click a button for VR settings. I wish I was joking. It's literally a click of a button. It's very simple, and the Unity engine does all the work for us. But there's one caveat though: if you don't do it right, something's going to break, and it's very hard trying to find that breaking. If it's a hidden break, if it's an obvious break, then it's easy to fix. And so that's like a double-edged sword, is that we could find the bugs very easily without using the VR headset on our heads, but sometimes there'll be some hidden bugs, so we have to do actual live testing. And one of the other things that I took on myself is building out the player's hands, because I knew that was going to take a while to model and animate. And that's another thing we're going to talk about later, about one of the challenges we face throughout development.
So, creating the jump scare and the interactables within the VR game was my task. So pretty much with the jump scare, how to integrate in the game, where in the lore you got to pick up notes. So we were going to start off with 3 notes, where as you go on, you're collecting the notes. Everybody knows Slender Man, how you got to collect 8 notes. Boom, bada bing. The Slender Man comes and scares you. Well, in this game, we just decided 3 notes would be simple, and on the third note, for me, to make it even more simpler for my task, to where once you grab the third note, it triggers a jump scare. So I had to create a script for it, and thankfully for the Unity engine, again, bless the Unity gods, some of the script was written out for us already. So all I needed to do was just make sure I added the notes where I want the play, what happen when X happens, and such. And another thing that we also added to the game where you can interact, because of VR, you can interact with everything in VR because like, you're supposed to be there. So we thought it would be fun to add, you interact with the radio in the game, you play music and all that.
Yeah, I was in the recent build that was lost to the hard drive. So I was really stunned about that one, because I thought it was very cool what I done with it.
So like I say, is a VR, what's VR without interacting with everything in your world? So that was the funnest part about scripting all the objects and integrating the jump scare. The jump scare was the one that creeped me out the most, because I had to sit there and just keep scaring myself over and over.
I didn't have to deal with it. That was fine.
Imagine you had to lock your door that night. So now, let's talk about the hurdles. Nobody likes bugs. I don't like spiders, so let's talk about that. But in programming in general, or anything in part of life, you're going to encounter hurdles. So with programming, we have a thing called bugs. And boy, we love bugs in the programming world, don't we? So with the bugs we encountered, it took us about 3 weeks to fix the hand coming out of the players. It's not syncing up with it. It took about the same amount of time when the hands just keep falling out the map, and player not be able to grab objects. So it took a good amount of time, because that one decimal. Gotta love it.
So now we're going to talk about the fun stuff. So we got all the technical aspects out the way. Now, I'm going to explain what SCP is. SCP is an online fan-made fictional horror series that users go online to a wiki website to create their own little stories. And those stories are based on supernatural, Lovecraftian, sci-fi, or even plausible realism that could be from Where's Waldo to Shadow Stars to even a slime creature that smells like candy. I wish I made it. It's all crazy and it's all cool to me. So I took a concept of one of the stories that they have on the website called SCP-5999. Now, based on the lore of the universe in the game, gonna go nerd out on y'all for a second. Bear with me. That there's 5999 is based on the same story about where the O5 Council were self-aware that they're all fictional characters, and their world is fictional, and they're aware that the website exists. So they created this anomaly on the website for the users or readers to fall into that trap, and there's an anomaly on there. And how you know the anomaly is there is that these are short stories that are not connected, but on a connection piece to all these short stories, or these candles and chains. So I took the premise of that story, used that similar to our game, but I used my own little spin on it where for the player to be immersed with it, and it can't know that they're being hunted down by the entity. So they had to put the pieces together as they look for the notes. So that comes into our gameplay where they find the notes, and that's where, as you said earlier, once they find a third note, that's where the jump scare happens. And so it's very self-explanatory. It's very simple, and I want to be simple since it's our first time doing VR development. So, any questions?
Is it a trade secret what actually jumps out and scares you?
I mean,
Or is it different things?
Just one.
it's just one jump scare.
It just,
But we
once you grab the last object, it teleports you to a certain spot in the room, and video just plays in front of your screen very loudly.
So you can't. So the way we have programmed in the game where it's a mesh renderer. So a mesh renderer allows you to see the object, and so we turn that mesh renderer off where you can't see the object. So it's invisible once you're in the game, but once you find the last note, it appears right in front of your face and scares the player, and the game's ends because there's no escaping from the anomaly.
Any other questions for our speaker?
Yes.
When do you think people will be able to play it?
Once give me another month to put all my fixes that I lost, then it'd be playable. Because I didn't have another month to do it again on the weekend, so and I didn't want to stress myself out about it.
You don't want to get your motion sickness.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, let's thank our speaker one more time.